Welcome to Takeology. Hope we're having a good day today. We're in the lab so you can do the cooking. Hope we're doing good. We got my boy Avery and Matt here today. Give us some good football takes. Talk about a little fantasy football and what's going on around the league. How we doing, boys?
Man, doing great. Great morning.
It's good
Doing
to hear.
good, brother.
Doing good. Enjoying life today, right? Good. Well, we'll start with a few lab report things. Nothing too crazy going around the league. Zay Jones has been suspended for 5 games for personal conduct. Don't know exactly what that means, but he's doing something he's not supposed to. So there's that. Other than that, preseason is just about done. Had some good games yesterday, boys. What do we think?
Man, it didn't go too bad. At all. Nothing too exciting though when you're watching a bunch of second and third string players dueling against each other.
Yeah.
I was slightly impressed with Evan Ingram. Just saying. If he gets that type of target share during the year, could be a value late.
So does that mean you were slightly impressed with Mac Jones throwing him the ball?
No, if he can catch it from Mac, he's going to do even better with Trevor.
That's true. Trevor did throw him, I think, one of the two, if not both.
Yeah. But Max was more impressive, to be honest.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Mac Jones, all he needed was new threads. That's all he needed.
I still just don't think. I think he's done. I think he's toasted.
All he needs is a new job. Just get him out of there.
That's right. That's right. Lots of quarterback openings I'm sure he can find somewhere. Also, I just wanted to highlight Joshua Dobbs. Boy, I'm loving me in Dobbs we trust. I'm loving some of the cooking he's doing out there.
Cooking. He had his chance last year to get that starting job in Minnesota, and he blew it. Wasn't he the guy who needed him to put up like 6 points in the game, and he almost didn't get it? Y'all remember that?
Oh, it was you? That was you?
I had Dobbs quite a bit of the year. Once defenses get to game plan for Dobbs, he's awful. It's just when he's off script and he's just doing his own thing. He's pretty good in that sense just because of his running ability. But when they prepare for him, don't start him. He's awful.
Good old Tennessee ball, Joshua Dobbs.
Man, he's an aerospace engineer. He's a smart man.
Yeah, he's a genius. I can't compete there. So, or football even. So.
He's also a weird-looking man.
He doesn't have eyebrows, isn't that right?
I think he has alopecia.
Oh.
Don't hate on the man for being bald. It's a good hair choice.
He's bald and happy. So
sorry,
that's all that matters. All right, well, we got some hot starts we're going to talk about today to start off the season in fantasy, who you should be playing in your lineup. We got a few different options here today. Who wants to start us off? Who wants to give us the hot start for week 1?
Man, you know what? You want to do it, Matt? Or you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
All right. So my hot start this year. These two guys, quarterback, wide receiver duo. These guys start off playing the Bills, the Rams, and the Lions. The Arizona Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Kyler Murray, hot start.
This guy's
or as I like to call, hot stuff.
I like it.
But
just for the crowd's reference, he has them on his team, so that's why he's saying this.
No, I mean, I'd put him on there regardless. I have Marvin Harrison in the redraft. I wish I had him in the dynasty, but
we all do, buddy. We all do.
But listen, so they started playing the Bills, the Rams, and the Lions. The Bills got hit hard, having to let go of like Joey Porter Jr. and their middle linebacker got hurt. He's done for the season. Well, he's done till like week 14 of the season. So I'm just saying the Bills way easier than what they were last year. And then we'll hit more about the Rams and Lions later today. But just know that they were ranked in 8th points allowed per game and 9th in points allowed per game, and both gave up about 270 yards through the air. So I'm just saying that's pretty promising. So the Bills, I'm going to go back. They allowed 26.6 points per game before they let go of anybody. That was 6th worst in the league. And they allowed 373.8 yards per game. So, I mean, starting off, that is going to be an offensive shootout between Josh Allen and Kyler Murray, who can score the most. So, what else was I going to bring up? Oh, yeah, against the Bills, the QBs threw 34.1 times per game. that would be like the second league highest average. So that's just some stats for the start off. The Bills defense, much worse than what people think they are. And they really didn't do anything in the offseason to fill that void. But listen to this. This is where it gets interesting. So Kyler threw for 1,800 yards in 8 games last year, had a 69% completion percentage, rushed for 244 yards, all while playing. Listen to these teams he played against: Atlanta, the Steelers, Houston, the 49ers, Philadelphia, and Chicago. Those are some pretty stout defenses from last year. They all ranked in the top 15, and he still did all that. So I'm just saying, him and Marvin together, the last time that he had a top 10 receiver, or shout out Alex Roan for this stat. The last time Kyler Murray had a 1,000-yard receiver on his team, he was QB2 in the league, and I fact checked that. And that
Wow.
is what is Marvin Harrison's over-under projection this year on yards? 1,050. So, stats don't really lie. If Marvin Harrison can get that 1,000 yards just like he did, then Kyler Murray is primed for another great year. And look at what he did last year. They let him sit all year or most of the year to get healthy. So you got a healthy Kyler Murray, and you got a great Marvin Harrison Jr. I would throw Trey McBride in here, but he bought out last year anyway. So you can just throw the whole Cardinals offense in here. So that's just my thing. I think they have the real ability to come in here and ball out. They play some really bad defenses to start off. So I know it's a stretch. Again, Marvin Harrison Jr., you'd have to take him in like the first to second round, which is a big pick. But Kyler Murray, people are getting in the 6th and 7th round, like myself, some value there.
Yeah.
And then that's just a solid pick. I think hot stuff. Will watch out for the Cardinals and a lot of shootouts against the Bills, Rams, and Lions for the first 3 weeks.
I respect that. I like that take.
They should help my fantasy team just a little bit. I'm really hoping I'm not a big stack fan, but we'll see. Hopefully Marv can produce a little bit. That's what I'm really hoping.
Yeah.
When it works, it works. When it doesn't,
It don't.
When it doesn't, you get a second to last finish in the season, like last year for me.
That Joey B and Jamar Chase last year really.
That was a bad year. Yeah.
Man, speaking of which, I know it's a little off topic, but Jamar Chase hasn't signed a new contract yet, and there's a week left to go. We worried about that any?
Yes.
I would be.
Yes.
CD is the same position, isn't he?
Yeah. I thought there was another one. Yeah, but those were the main two, really.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase he's scarier because their just organization doesn't pay highly for players. Like they kind of broke that with paying Joe Burrow as much as they did. But in the past, they do not pay overpriced for receivers, anybody else for that matter. Jerry Jones will cave. You know he's going to cave. He gave Ezekiel Elliott a 5-year
ton of money. God. And he wasn't even doing good.
When he gave him that deal, that was outrageous. But
do you think that's why? Do you think that's why he's being a little bit more protective against CD? Maybe. I also think he's also doing it for publicity. Every day, you cannot go on ESPN without seeing the Dallas Cowboys.
A lot of it is publicity. They're such a big brand that he's more about making money, it seems like almost. They said they were going to go all in this year, and who have they signed? Nobody. Yeah. But they'll end up paying CD. What other receiver do they have? Tolbert?
They got
they have no one on that team.
Brandon Cooks?
Hey, don't be hating on Tolbert. Sleeper pick. Don't
I
be
do like Tolbert.
But that's my hot start. Cardinals offense, specifically Kyler and Marvin. Really want to see that. We know Trey McBride can ball out.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see Kyler Murray ball out again like he did in the past.
That offense is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
I like it a lot.
He's a guaranteed number one. There's nobody else on that roster.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The ball's going to him. Last year, the Cardinals were the 32 ranked defense.
And like you said,
awful. They're going to be in shootouts every game.
Yep.
Yeah, like you said, Zay Jones going out for him. For 5 games. Who else is going to get the ball? Trey McBride and Marv. That's it. And James Conner.
Yeah. The next two guys in the lineup is Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch.
Trey McBride's going to be a huge benefactor to not that Zay Jones just commands targets, but he would have got targets. Yeah. So I think Trey McBride and kind of mix in James Conner a little bit with the short passes. but mostly Trey McBride for sure.
Trey Benson.
Trey Benson, baby.
Hey,
like that.
Connor's gonna get hurt. He's never played a full season ever, so it'll be Trey at some point.
Yep. But
I like it. So we got Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler Murray as a hot start week 1, right? Matt, how are we feeling about our hot start for week 1 today?
I have another QB wide receiver duo here, and mine's involving the Lions. My boy Jared Goff down there.
AG.
I think just throughout his career, we've seen that when he has a good offensive line, Jared Goff is legit one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I mean, he got to a Super Bowl, didn't win it. It was one of the worst Super Bowls I've ever watched. But he got there, and it's just proof that when he has a good O-line, he's going to be a good starter for you. But the first 3 weeks, he plays the Rams, Tampa Bay, Arizona, and Seattle.
Jeez. Easy.
Stop me if you heard a good defense, though. Just go ahead. And not to mention, 3 out of those 4 games are at home, and he was so much better at home last year.
He cooks.
When he's in the dome, that team just looks completely different. It's kind of like the Dolphins effect. They can't play in brisk weather. If it's anything under 70 degrees, they just suck. But you mix in with Jared Goff, since he's going to have such a good opening schedule, Amon-Ra. Last year, Amon-Ra was one of the most consistent receivers in the entire league. Now, the TDs probably won't match up to what they did last year. It's kind of an outlier. What did he have, like 8, 9 touchdowns last year?
he had 10. I can already tell you that. He had 10.
Yeah.
Jared Goff did?
No, Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra.
So that was a little bit of an outlier, but without Amon-Ra, this offense doesn't move. So with Goff, if I'm predicting Goff to have a good first 4 weeks, it's in turn going with Amon-Ra. And the Rams last year, just for the opening game, they gave up an average of 20 points a game to quarterbacks. And the Rams defense is going to be bad. They lost Aaron Donald. They have a lot of young guys who might be good in the future, but for the present right now, I think that's going to be a pretty tough game for them. And the Rams offense is going to be loaded as long as Stafford's healthy. So that predicts kind of to be a shootout. So if that can be a shootout, Goff in a dome, I think that's going to be a hell of a game, especially those first 4 weeks. I think all those games are kind of going to be shootouts. I mean, Baker kind of proved it last year. He's pretty good. So if they can put up some points, Arizona, he was just talking about Kyler and Marvin. I think they're going to put up points. The only one I'm a little questionable is Seattle. I'm not a Geno guy. I just don't believe in him. But if
Seattle does.
Yeah, if he puts last year behind him and goes to the year before, he played pretty good that year. And they have a good running back as well. So if they could put up some points that year, I think they're all kind of shaping out to be shootouts, which is going to be huge for fantasy. The Lions defense is awful. So they're going to have to put up points. They have the one D lineman, Aiden, but other than that, I think
they just released their corner, didn't they?
Yeah, they're in such flux at that position. They're drafting guys, signing guys. I think they still have CJ Gardner-Johnson, but it's still going to be a bad defense.
They don't.
They don't have him.
They don't have him anymore. They let him walk.
That's what I thought. They kind of got rid of their defense. Their defense was decent last year.
We don't care about defense as far as offense goes because that just helps us on the offensive side. So as long as you don't care about the Lions winning, that's actually good that they have a bad defense. So that's my hot start for for the first week.
I like it. So we got 2 duos. They're hot starts, right? A little QB receiver action, and that's a good stack then even. Would you say?
It is a good stack.
That's a fantastic stack. You can get Goff in just the end of the round, like the end of the draft. He's kind of a steal. And he's on – I mean, for our league specifically, he's on waivers. I had the decision of picking up Goff or Tua recently just because they both have really good matchups for week 1. And I ended up going with Tua because I have Waddle. So that creates that stack there. But for anybody in our league, Goff's a good pickup.
Do it right now.
Yes, sir.
Why not?
Man, Monroe, you can't stack Monroe if you don't have that 7 to 7 pick. You ain't getting Monroe. He's
Yeah.
dog. He's great.
I'd say it's a good stack with Laporta as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. He's an end zone target, and I think Amon Ra is going to continue to be a chain mover and more than an end zone guy.
Amon Ra is he's so dependable. I mean, it's crazy how good he is. It really is.
I agree. I like it. All right, boys, are we ready for the hot start of the week right here for me? Okay?
Hot start of the week right
The
here.
week 1. Listen, it's not shiny. It's not exciting. But I've got Chris Godwin as a hot start for week 1. Let me give you a reason why, okay? Just like you've been talking about how there's been shootouts. Baker Mayfield's going to be – their defense is not good either, okay? The Bucs don't have a great defense. They're playing against the Commanders in week 1, who was ranked last year as the 31st worst defense in the league. They didn't really make a lot of adjustments. And it's going to be another game where they're just throwing the ball. They just there was a news report that Chris Godwin, he's going to be in the slot this year. He usually is anyways. And he's going to get more targets. Because last year he had a decent year. He had 83 receptions, 1,024 yards. And it was 12.3 average per reception, and he had 2 touchdowns. That's what hurts him a lot in fantasy. The touchdowns are going to Mike Evans. There's no question about that. That's what makes Mike Evans Mike Evans. When they get in the end zone, Baker's tossing that thing up and letting Mike go get it.
Yep.
But I think this year they're going to kind of shift the offense a little bit with the new personnel they have, and they're going to kind of start to focus on Chris Godwin a lot more. Because over the last 4 years, the last 3 years, he's had 1,000 yards every year, but his touchdowns went from 5 to 3 to 2. The biggest season he had was in 2019 with 9 touchdowns, and that was he was I believe that year he was a top 20 receiver. I mean he was highly scouted at that time. So I think this year, just in week 1, we can get a look at, okay, is Chris Godwin going to get kind of what he used to? Because he's a chain mover like Amon Ra, definitely not the level of Amon Ra, but if he can get those touchdown targets, it hurts Mike Evans sadly, but I think that they're going to spread the ball around the field a little bit more this year than hyper focus on Mike Evans. So I think Chris Godwin's a good start going against the Commanders week 1. And obviously if it's that Mike Evans heavy offense again, you can just sit in week 2. You know what I mean? But I think he's got a bound for a big year. So he's my hot start for week 1. I think he's going to pop off.
So do you think
Look, here we go.
Let me ask. I don't disagree with the pick. I think Chris Godwin will have a better year than he did last year. Because, to start the year, I don't even think Baker Mayfield looked his way. I think he averaged 2 receptions a game. But then in the back half, he got 8 targets a game. He went crazy in the back half. But my thing is, you get to that end zone, they are not going to throw the ball to anyone else. It is Mike Evans' show in the end zone. So my only problem with it is I think you're right. We're in a half PPR league. So, do you really value those over-the-middle receptions? And he might get maybe 8 of them, get 4 points. Say he has 8 catches for 60 yards. Is that a good week for you? Do you consider that a good week if he doesn't score a touchdown?
I think because the offense is changing with the new personnel coming in, I do think that they're going to focus more on Chris Godwin. Because, you can't just – how old's Mike Evans? 30?
31.
31. He's almost at that cliff of where it's like, it's time for you, bro.
He has no cliff.
Hey, I'm telling you, I think he does. I'm telling you, I think Chris Godwin has a good year. I think week 1, he's definitely a hot start. Especially if he can get 1 touchdown with the production he gets in terms of receptions over the middle and yards. The guy, it's 12.3 average yards. He's getting targeted the deep ball. If he can just break away and get to the end zone, that's tough.
He could have spike games. I think it's kind of a scary week 1 bet, just because we didn't see it last year, and you want to start your season off so good, and I think you could have boom potential there, but personally that would be too scary of a start when we just haven't seen it this year. But he could have a good year. I'm not discrediting that. I just probably wouldn't start him week 1.
You got to look at your team too in terms of flex. But
if your team's doo-doo, Yeah, start him. But I mean, more than likely, you're going to have more of a proven flex option to start rather than him. But if he starts balling, I wouldn't care at all to start him.
I like the risk.
Matt,
I like the risk to start. You know what I mean?
Matt started Adam Thielen after the first 2 weeks last year.
He did.
Come on now.
He rode
Hey,
him.
old man Adam. And I'll tell you what, people are forgetting his name, okay?
There's a reason.
They are. I
There's
agree.
a reason they're
I
forgetting
agree.
his name.
Dude, he's going undrafted, and he
Yeah.
finished in the top 24 last year. And I know it was the first half of the season that he was doing so well because he's going to wear down. He's an old receiver. But we're talking about the start of the season right now. And Deontay Johnson's already had a couple injuries. He's still dealing with one. So who's going to take the
Interesting.
ball? Xavier Legette, it's going to take him a while to
Yeah.
ramp up. And this was Bryce Young's favorite target last year. I should have put him in the sleeper episode yesterday just so I could go hard on him. But
You should have.
I think we'll see week 1. He's Bryce Young's favorite target.
Hot
I'm
start.
telling you that.
Oh,
Hot start. Adam
no
Thielen.
way.
No, I'm not saying hot start. That's too risky. I'm just saying he's going to be his favorite target week 1.
Are you saying that if Deontay Johnson is out, he's the favorite target, or with Deontay Johnson, he's the favorite
If
target?
Deontay's out.
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say
He's
Deontay
valid.
Johnson's going to be the
He's gonna
number
get his.
one easily.
Deontay's better. He's just flat out better. But I think Thielen's just his safety net a little bit. He's got rapport with him. He knows. And Thielen has some of the best hands in the game.
He does.
A lot of his points last year were just from the red zone. That they just draw stuff up for Adam. Now that might change with Deontay being there. He's the better receiver. I'm just saying, keep your eyes out on him because he's literally undrafted. So you can pick him up for nothing.
Shout out to Xavier Legette, Mr. What is the last pick in the draft?
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant. Our last pick. Thank you. I already dropped him, but
South
he did
Carolina.
get drafted. He did get drafted.
He did.
Yeah. I'm sorry I went on my Adam Thielen tangent there.
No, I respect it. Here's the thing. I think if you're not willing to take a risk, I heard a reporter say this. If you're not willing to take a risk in fantasy, you're not willing to win a championship.
But Adam Thielen, the risk. The problem with it, I don't mind it. The problem is, I think he's 32 years old. I could be wrong about that, but I do believe he's 32.
He's old. He's old.
The Panthers not going to be. There's not going to be enough passing yards to go around for 2 receivers. There might be. If Bryce Young somehow just becomes an elite passer, he might be able to sustain 2 receivers. But I just the running game is going to be bad. The passing game is going to be bad, and so you're just betting on a bad team to do good things.
Honestly, they have the OC from Tampa Bay last year now.
They're gonna pass.
So that's why I'm kind of high on Jonathan Brooks, which I didn't end up getting to draft him. He went before me. But if you look at how many dump offs Rachaad White got last year, and Jonathan Brooks is a heck of a pass catching back.
Yeah.
He would have been a good stash, and he could be a league winner late in the year just because of the volume he's going to get. I don't know who ended up getting him in our draft, but I would have liked to have him.
Yeah,
but people forget Chuba Hubbard. He was playing good at the end of last year.
I tried to take him on waivers.
Oh, who got him? I forgot who got him.
I believe it was a man named Matt McDonald.
Oh
yeah, because his team's projected. Because his team might be projected to finish last.
I was a little upset. That is true. Projected last.
ESPN's projections. They just don't know what they're doing.
Well, there goes the sponsorship deal with the ESPN. We're done. We're cooked.
Parker Mattinson as good old Jonathan Brooks.
So talking about the OC coordinator, this kind of wrapping it all up. Are you scared that Chris Godwin might actually be affected more, like his stock goes down because of the new offensive coordinator? Because, everything that OC, what's his name? I don't remember his name, but anything he's touched, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, now Bryce Young, anything he's touched over the last 3 years has kind of turned to gold. And we saw Geno, after he left the Seahawks, Geno Smith, now that he left the Bucks, is Baker Mayfield going to decrease right now? So are you kind of scared of that?
Dude, Tampa Bay's new OC is Liam Cohen.
Yep. Yep.
QB coach for Kentucky last year.
How does that? And Kentucky was bad. So how does that make you feel? I mean, wrapping it all up, do you really feel good about Chris Godwin with the new OC being a Kentucky boy, or do you kind of fear that this OC leaving is going to do him more harm?
I like the new OC. So he's got a past with Baker Mayfield. I don't know if you knew that or not. I actually just saw that. As a
From
stat.
where?
I don't know.
OU?
Can we get?
I think so.
Can we get a fact check on that?
He made it known Mayfield would be a pleasure to coach again.
Can we get some of the lab rats going in there?
Hey,
fact checking that.
Get a lab rat going in there. Somebody look that up for me.
I'm checking.
But I love Baker Mayfield. You guys know this. I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan. Okay. I love how he plays. He proved last year. That's why I picked Mike Evans last year, I was dogged on for that. But
we're dogged on.
Listen, Baker Mayfield he's a decent quarterback. He's not elite. Okay. He can move the ball, and I think if they switch to a new system, because they were, I mean, I'm talking, it was Rachaad White, Mike Evans. That was the team. That was it. I mean, other than that, the ball wasn't moved around much. I think this OC will move the ball around a lot more, which gives opportunity for Chris Godwin to cook. And with a bad defense in week 1 with the Commanders, I mean, they're awful. I think it'll be a shootout, right? Because the defense of Tampa Bay is not good either. So I think Chris Godwin could get a lot of work, at least week 1. Now, I'm not saying start him every week, right? But I think week 1, he's a valid start in terms of taking a risk if you don't have a good player, right? So I think he's a hot start. Like, if I had him, I'd want him to be my flex at least, you know.
Cohen was on the Rams staff when Mayfield had its stint with the Rams there.
Okay. Hey,
So
Sean
he was
McVay,
actually-
prodigy. I love Sean McVay.
Cohen was actually coaching him when Baker had that 99-yard drive to win the game.
Yep.
Hey,
that was
listen,
impressive.
if that
Go
doesn't
back,
help
go
you
back.
want to put Chris Godwin in on week 1,
Now, the Rams had a better team.
they obviously they do have
And just a better overall roster and coach and everything.
but I love my risks. I like to take a risk out here.
It's a risk. All right. I agree with that.
It's a risk I wouldn't take.
It's hot 'cause it's
agree with that.
spicy,
Me and
you know
Matt
what
are
I'm
the
saying?
same way. Me and Madison were more of practical takes. You're Chris Godwin, a little out there.
Hey, look at my pedigree in terms of fantasy in the last few years.
Boy, you
Look at
won
my pedigree,
one,
boys.
won one and lost one. Who'd you lose to, though? I mean, just saying.
You win some, you lose some. Matt, how many do you have under your belt, though? Just
In our personal league, none. In other leagues, quite a bit.
okay. I respect it.
Injuries,
He's been
man.
on the hill.
I've got an excuse for last year. I don't want to hear it.
Okay,
Injuries.
that's valid.
Yeah, I
That's
get it. I get it. Awesome, boys. Well, some good hot starts. Do we want to move on to we'll quickly touch this up with some cold sits? What do we think?
Oh yeah, we can do a quick cold sit because that way we can start rolling into our matchups.
Yeah, let's hit it real quick. We'll start with Avery here.
Okay, sit candidate. Listen, this guy balled out last year, but I'm sitting Dak Prescott in week 1. Sitting Dak Prescott week 1. He plays the Cleveland Browns, in which we all know Cleveland's defense elite.
Yeah.
Elite. So I mean, they still have Myles Garrett. They still got Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Jawan Thornhill, and they have Martin Emerson Jr. They have all their safeties and corners coming back from last year. I think they lost one middle linebacker, and they got the same defensive line. The Browns pretty much said we're running it back with who we got. So, I mean, you're looking at a top 10 defense in the Cleveland Browns. And I just think Dak Prescott, coming off the year, hasn't got to play with he played with CD he's played with him for 2 seasons, but no connection during the offseason. So CD's going to come back looking rusty. So really all you got is Jake Ferguson and Brandon Cooks.
And Tolbert, that's it.
And Tolbert. I mean, that's all you got there in the wide receiver tight end department. So I just don't think – I think if CD doesn't get signed or doesn't play for some reason week 1, Dak Prescott is an automatic sit against the Cleveland Browns.
Just to back Avery up a little bit more, Cleveland only gave up 14 points a game to QBs last year. And they arguably have – I know Avery's going to not like this, but they arguably have the best defensive player in the league, which TJ Watt is amazing. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying Myles Garrett is a phenomenal
Mhm.
athlete.
Yeah, he's right up there with him.
I agree.
And the Cowboys did lose their left tackle.
Yeah.
So he didn't play a lot of last year either because he was hurt. But if CD's not out there, this is going to be a horrendous game for Dak Prescott.
Yep.
And
I like that.
I don't even know which way that's going to go, if he's going to get signed or not. It's such a weird situation. I don't understand it. I'm going to go on a little tangent here.
Let it fly.
You're
Let it
going
fly.
you're going to pay these players anyways. They're the best players on your team. The prices are only going up. Why are we not paying them? If they pay CD early, he's probably getting around the Amon Ra money, which was like $31 million. Now he's going to have to be above 35 because of what Jefferson signed for.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why these teams are waiting to pay the players. They're going to do it anyways. They're not going to trade CD Lamb. What are we talking about? If they do, that's the dumbest decision they've ever made. I understand not signing Dak just because of his playoff performances, which it wasn't all on him last year. Their defense just folded.
Yeah. Commanders. Dang it.
But not signing CD is just such a stupid way to run your business. It just doesn't make – I know they're in the publicity business over there in Dallas, but it's just so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sorry about that.
No,
I agree.
it's valid. No, I agree. I agree. It's right.
It almost makes you want to sit Dak more just because of all the ridiculousness of Dallas Cowboys.
I would not play Dak week 1. That's a great sit by Avery.
Yeah.
There's not a chance I would start him.
No.
With
that being said, though, Joey B.
I like it.
Is that who you're sitting, Alex?
No, but I think it's a valid thing to consider. He's in the same boat right now as Dak Prescott.
Now, the only difference there is he's got a lot more help on offense.
Yeah.
Like, he's got a number 1 receiver just sitting there with T. Higgins. He'd be a number 1 on a different team. So I don't think it's exactly the same because the Dallas has no one else. Their running back is freaking Ezekiel Elliott.
Rico Dowdle.
Rico. It's Rico. Now, the Bengals did lose Joe Mixon, which I don't think he had a ton of burst last year. But I'm not going to sit here and act like Zach Moss is an upgrade. It's not. So, yeah, Joey could for sure. I mean, he could be in trouble. You never know. I think Jamar. I think they'll pay him. He's another one of those. You're going to have him the next 5 years. Why are we waiting? So I think he'll get paid as well.
All right, Dak. Sitting Dak. All right, Matt, what you got?
Mine is just a group as a whole, a position group as a whole. The Ravens receivers for the first 4 weeks. In my opinion, it's just a brutal schedule. For the first game of the year, they're at KC, which we did lose L'Jarius Sneed last year, but we arguably had the second best corner in the league in Trent McDuffie. So McDuffie's going to be on Flowers. So he's going to be locked all game. Who's the backup over there? Bateman?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Besides Flowers, is there another wide receiver on that team you're ever going to play on a weekly basis?
No.
Because I really don't think there is, unless you're classifying Andrews as a receiver, which he'll be fine over these first 4 weeks. This is more talking about Flowers. I'm not a big believer in Flowers anyways. You kind of saw last year how vital he is. Like, one game he's going off, the next game he's having 2 points. And a lot of that is just the way they run things over there in Baltimore, because they run a ton. And if they get a lead in a game, they're going to continue to run the ball the rest of the game. They don't care how they win. They just look to win. So you could have games where they get a touchdown lead and run the rest of the game. And that's obviously not going to be good for Flowers. And I also just don't like his attitude, which I'm a Chiefs fan. And when he was taunting last year, and then he got the ball knocked out on the goal line and arguably lost him the game. I'm just saying, I don't think he's gonna. He's got KC, the Raiders, who had a good defense in the second half of the season last year, and then they have Dallas, whose corners are very good. You've got Bland and Diggs over there, which Bland, if he keeps picking balls like he did last year, this guy's going to be unbelievable. And then they have Buffalo, which they've had some hits on the defensive side, kind of as Avery talked about earlier today. But Buffalo always seems to have a pretty good defense. So I just don't think you're going to be happy with starting Flowers any of those first 4 weeks. Possibly against Buffalo the 4th week, but I probably wouldn't touch him as far as starting him. Unless he just proves me wrong and starts going off every game, I wouldn't touch him for the first 4.
I like it. Yeah, their receiver core is pretty awful. It's Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar.
Oh no, not Nelson
Yeah.
Aguilar. He's back. He's
And
back.
they don't have depth in terms of second string receivers either. Russell Gage is their next best. You know what I mean?
No, Andrews makes up for a lot of that just
Yes.
because of how good he is, as well as Lamar being to run the ball as effectively as he does. Now, defenses are going to have to stack the box against them this year with them
Yes.
getting Henry. So, I mean, it'll get the receivers open a lot more. I just don't believe in Flowers all that much to be the number one guy. He's like in my opinion, he's like a flex option each week. I don't think he's anything above that.
No, that's valid.
I respect
I
that.
think that's yeah. I think that's
Now, I also
accurate.
strongly dislike the Ravens, so take that as you will.
Personal vendetta there against the Ravens.
The Ravens that are probably gonna have a good shot to win the AFC championship this year.
Avery,
I mean, they gotta get past Pittsburgh first. Just saying. I mean,
Oh,
they gotta beat us. They gotta beat us at least once in the regular season, which they haven't done in 3 years.
my mind's kind of slipping me. Who won the last 2 years?
I'm not quite sure. I think this Buns team with.
I'd have to look it up.
I think they won because someone didn't give Christian McCaffrey the ball 4 times within the 10-yard line.
That's valid.
Who did?
Yeah,
Christian
you gotta-
McCaffrey.
You
Christian
got to get
McCaffrey.
it out of Brock's hands.
I agree. Well, I'm just saying.
We
Christian,
almost had him. We almost.
Christian McCaffrey.
He agreed.
Here's the argument. Christian McCaffrey, dude, was balling. He was getting 10 yards a run, and then they get to the 7-yard line and said, "Nah, it ain't it no more."
Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, I don't understand what the Ravens were doing last year. I mean, I was terrified of that game, and then they started letting Lamar just throw it. I think he had 21 consecutive passes without
Yeah.
a run. We all know Lamar's not a stellar passer. What are we doing? I mean, I was ecstatic about it, but they were averaging 5 yards a carry. What are we doing?
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I agree. The Ravens receivers. I'm in on that one. I think that's a good. And it's
Yeah.
good. I'm not
And
high
Dak.
on
I
him.
agree both.
Yep.
Good sits, boys. Well, I'll give you mine real quickly so we can get to this matchup, week 1 matchup picks we've got here. Mine is also a group of receivers. I think the Chargers receivers as a whole should be set for week 1. Okay. Here's my reasoning, right? They're playing the Raiders week 1. Raiders have a good defense. They haven't really lost anybody necessarily, and they're going to be good. I was watching them in the preseason game. Even their second and third string defense was pretty elite. It wasn't bad. So I know they're going to have good depth in terms of defense in the Raiders. The Chargers, Justin Herbert's still recovering. He'll be good week 1, I'm pretty sure. But we don't know what he's going to look like. I mean, I'm sure he'll do good as a quarterback. There's no doubt there. But with the new system, I think they're going to run heavy. And I almost put Gus Edwards as my hot start for the week 1 just because I don't think they're going to throw the ball that much. I mean, we don't even know who the receiver 1 is. Ladd McConkey, I love him, but he's injury prone. I mean, he came off injury from college, and he's kind of still battling injury right now, even through the preseason. So if Ladd McConkey's not even 100%, and we don't even know who's going to ball out other than Avery's Josh Palmer.
I mean,
Right.
you know who's going to ball out. You know
Quentin
who's gonna
Johnson.
ball out.
I just think
Oh.
for week 1, I'd sit them all. I just have no faith in the Chargers receiving room right now, even though I love Ladd. And I'd like to wait a few weeks before I can say, okay, I'm going to start this guy. But Gus Edwards on the other side of that, I think he'd be a great start for week 1 because the Chargers are not going to throw that ball much.
I like that
I
a
don't
lot. Greg
I agree.
Roman loves to run the ball, and we just really have no idea who's going to be the wide receiver 1. It
Yeah.
could be Ladd. It could be Palmer, as Avery would suggest. It could be freaking Quentin Johnston. We
It
just
could be.
never know. And I think he's awful with the best of them, but it could be him. We just have no idea.
Yeah.
I think they'll be better this year, but it's going to take some time. I mean,
Yeah.
that team was awful last year.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time to get their success going. But yeah, I agree. I wouldn't touch a single one of them until we figure out who's going to be getting the most of the targets in that offense.
Yeah. I think each of the receivers are worth stashing on your lineup for sure. I mean, that's obvious, I think.
I don't know about Hughes.
Yeah, that's a risky one. But Gus Edwards, to me, I like what you talked about the other day. I think Gus Edwards is a guaranteed start, just to try it out because he's the guy down there, and they're going to run that ball.
Fall in the end zone, baby. Just fall in the end zone.
That's right. That is exactly right. So those are our cold sits. We got the entirety of 2 different receiver rooms in the Ravens and Chargers. That's a lot of options there, but I like it. And we got Dak Prescott. So
well, not really. Those wide receiver rooms are awful. So we were basically just pointing out a few guys.
That's valid. I like it. So those are the cold sits. All right, we got a few good games coming up in week 1, and we're just going to highlight just a few, right? And from those teams, we'll talk about some people that are fantasy start worthy, right? Why you should start these guys from these offenses, and why we love this matchup. Who wants to give us a start? I think we should let old Matt McDonald here go with the start with how his rage comes from the Ravens, right?
Yeah, give us that. Give us the prime time start matchup.
First game of the season.
All right, gentlemen. The 2-time returning champions. Let's go, baby. So we've got the Ravens week 1. We're favored in that game. It's at Arrowhead. I would personally choose the Chiefs to win that game. I'm a bit of a homer, so you guys decide what you want. But I think Hollywood Brown's probably going to miss this game with the injury he had. It was a 4 to 6 week injury. They said he's questionable for week 1, but I probably wouldn't rely on him being there. Even if he was there, I probably wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. I just don't know what he's going to look like in our offense here. The only players that I would personally start on the Chiefs side are going to be Pacheco. He's just going to have a ton of volume. Now, the Ravens have a heck of a defense. It's going to be tough sledding all game, but I think one of those couple touchdowns we do score are going to be on the ground, and he's all we got really. We have the the rookie running back behind him, Carson Steele, but I really don't think he's going to play much. Rice, it doesn't look like Rice is even going to be touched with that suspension this year. The NFL is kind of having to wait on the actual legal proceedings to follow through. And it looks like that's going to be pushed back till next year. So I think Rice is going to be our wide receiver 1 in this offense. I think Kelsey is going to take a slight step back, so they could be kind of on the level playing field as far as targets go. After our bye week last year, Rice ended up being our number 1 targeted receiver on that team, including Kelsey. I think everybody in the fantasy community was disappointed with Kelsey's back half of the year. And I think that just has to do with his age. They're saving him a lot for the playoffs. As you saw, he was a killer in the playoffs.
Yeah,
so I think he's just not going to play the same snap percentages he's played his whole career. I think as the past few years have gone by, it stepped down by like 2 or 3% a year. So he's not going to be on the field all the time. So I think Rice is going to be wide receiver 1. He will have Marlon Humphrey on him this game. So that's a bit of a dicey start. I wouldn't mind putting him in the flex position. So Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rice. And then on the Ravens side, I wouldn't play Flowers. I just talked about him. I'm not a believer in him, but even besides my biases, McDuffie's going to be on him this whole game. And McDuffie was an all-pro last year. He's a heck of a corner. And he's going to be locking him up all game. The only player on their side I would probably play is Lamar. The offense is going to run through him. He's going to be scrambling the whole game. Something we've kind of struggled with against the Ravens is Lamar scrambling. So I think he's going to have a good game. And then Andrews as well. He's just going to get the volume. It's going to be tougher for him, but we averaged giving 9 points a game to tight ends last year. And as you guys know, tight ends don't put up a ton of points, but 9 points is going to be a good week for him. So I'd put Andrews in there. The Ravens have the number 1 ranked defense coming into the year here. And then we have the 6th ranked defense. So this is going to be a low scoring game. I don't think it's going to hit the overs. So I would be careful with this game. The most confident I am in a starter is going to be Pacheco. I Mahomes is a dicey start this game. He really is. They
Mhm.
averaged 13 points to quarterbacks last year. Um, I would still start him if I had him, just because it's the first game of the year. Andy Reid coming off a bye or an off season is generally just amazing at designing plays. So I think we will score some. So I would probably play Mahomes. It's just a little dicey, and I'd play Rice. And then on the Ravens side, it'd be Andrews. But other than that, I would stay away from everybody in this game, as
No
well
Derrick Henry.
as well as Lamar. No, I wouldn't play Derek.
Interesting.
It's so weird. Like in the playoffs, we just saw them go away from the run. I don't know why. Like if we get ahead, is Lamar going to be forced to pass? Because the Ravens, they love to run the ball when they have the lead. That's how they won so many games last year. They get in the
Yeah.
lead and then they just run the rest of the game.
Mm.
Can they sustain a lead against us? I really don't know if that's true. And we also don't know the volume Henry's going to get in this offense.
Yeah.
Like he's an old running back. He's right on that cliff. Now he has been one of the best running backs in the league for I don't know how long. What, the past 7 years?
time.
But with his age, you really don't know what kind of volume he's going to be getting. And they lost 3 offensive line starters. So who knows how good that offensive line is going to be. I really think Lamar is going to be scrambling a lot of the game. I mean, we have one of the best intense interior defensive linemen in the league, Chris Jones. He's going to be wrecking the game all year. So yeah, I would play Lamar just because of his scrambling ability. And then I'm picking the Chiefs this game. You already knew that.
Yeah,
Could be-
already knew.
Red Kingdom.
Could be an undefeated season, boys. You never know.
That's a little far. Question:
Ooh.
would you rather start? So you were talking Jared Goff or Patrick Mahomes? Which
Jared-
I'll cover
Jared
Jared Goff.
I would start,
Wow.
and I'm the biggest homer there is. I would play Jared Goff without a question.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what I figured.
It doesn't matter the turnover at defensive coordinator with the Ravens. They have a good defense every single year. And a
Yeah.
lot of that has to do with their head coach. Harbaugh is just such a good defensive coach.
Yeah.
So I would play Goff. And just like you were saying, I would play Kyler over Mahomes as well.
Wow.
I think Mahomes could have an MVP year. This is just a really tough game to start the season with. They're such a good defense.
I agree.
So yeah, there's a ton of QBs that you could play over Mahomes this week, and I wouldn't even bat an eye, even though he's the best in the league. Could be an arguable GOAT in the future. Don't worry about that though. We'll talk about that later.
Another day.
Yeah.
I like it. All right.
Wait
Chiefs
till,
over
wait,
Ravens.
wait till he gets the three-peat this year.
We'll see.
I
We'll see
actually would
about
love
that.
to see that. I'd love to see that.
They gotta get through the AFC North first, but we'll see.
Them Steelers.
We'll see about that. Not just the Steelers. From someone named Joey B. If he makes the playoffs, it's kind of a cheap
Joe Burrow.
carrier if he makes the playoff. But that's
Icy Joe.
conversation. It's conversation for another day.
Save that for playoff season. All right.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, I figured since we mentioned some Steelers there, we'll let Avery round it out for us. And I'm going to talk about Steelers versus Falcons week 1. Listen, when I started to dive into this game, I'm excited to watch this game, which is crazy to say with how bad these offenses are. Okay, last year. It's kind of crazy. But with how new and revamped both of really the Falcons, but even the Steelers are a brand new team. To see these two teams go together is going to be a great game. I got some stats for us, right? So, or even just some fun facts.
Let's hear it. Let's
All
hear
right, where was Arthur Smith born?
it. What?
I'm gonna
Yeah.
guess Pittsburgh.
I'm gonna guess Vermont.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh no!
Crazy,
way.
crazy, right? He's a Tennessean. Now, when he was with Tennessee, he was a great offensive coordinator. With what he had, give or take. I mean, Ryan Tannehill, Lord, but AJ Brown had a great season. I think George Pickens can have a great season this year, and he's one of those guys I would start this week. That week 1, I would start George Pickens if I had him as a receiver too, bare minimum. Right? I love me some George Pickens as a Georgia dog.
Ew.
I know.
Ew,
I know.
brother.
The issue with starting George Pickens is his quarterback, right? I believe Russell Wilson's declared starter, and I don't think that'll last all year. I looked up the two different 2023 stats for Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Okay. 3,070 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And he rushed for 341 yards, 3 touchdowns. Is your boy Russell Wilson. Okay.
No way.
Yeah. When I read those stats, I was like, for what he was doing, he actually didn't have a bad season in terms of what he had, really. So there's some upside there. All right, Justin Fields, 2,562 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, 657 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. Awful season. I mean, I was looking at those stats, and I was like, this guy did not play well, really, at all. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. The only reason he's fantasy relevant is because of his rushing upside.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Najee Harris. I think he's a great start for that week. With Jalen Warren being out, I think Najee Harris can have a good week, especially with they're still trying to figure out the quarterback situation. And I believe Roman Wilson, he's still an injury. He could be ready for week 1. I mean, we don't fully know yet. And then you got the Muth, Pat Freiermuth. I think
Muth on the loose, baby.
I think if you're going to punt the tight end in terms of fantasy, he could be a good pickup. Because Russell Wilson, I mean, he'll hit that tight end, right? I think if you look at Arthur Smith last year with the Falcons, although they were so bad, he ran a 2 tight end set, and those tight ends they had the ball all the time, right? Didn't matter who it was. And really, Kyle Pitts, he should have been better than what he was, but that's a whole nother discussion, right? We'll get there in a sec. So the only people I would start from this offense, maybe George Pickens as a flex. And for sure, I'm starting Najee Harris with the Jalen Warren. Now, if Jalen Warren's back, it kind of becomes into question if I'm really going to start Najee Harris. And then, I mean, in terms of defenses, they're both good defenses. Falcons have upgraded with Matthew Judon. They just signed A.J. Terrell to a long year. So with that being said, I mean, it kind of also is hard to say I want to start George Pickens with A.J. Terrell out there. But I think he could be a good option if you don't have much there. Falcons, Zach Robinson is their new OC. Where was he at last year?
Never
He was
heard of
at
him.
the Rams, wasn't he?
He was at the Rams. 5 years under
He was at
Sean
the Rams.
McVay. Listen,
Woo!
I love some Sean McVay, and I think this offense is going to be cooking this year with how new they are. Now, it's all dependent on Kirk Cousins. I love Kirk Cousins. Last year, he had 2,331 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but he missed a lot of time. So those, I mean, as long as he played to have 18 touchdowns is crazy, right? I think he'll have a good year depending on how that Achilles is recovered. Even if he didn't, I think Michael Penix could come in and at least throw the ball somewhere. You know what I mean? But you never know. I would not be starting Kirk Cousins in this game at all, right? He's not even a question to me, even in terms of rostering right now, just because he's not really worth the spot, in my opinion. With the defense and the Steelers that just added Patrick Queen, and they've brought back a lot. I mean, they still got the top dogs in T.J. Watt and Cameron Hayward, you know. So I wouldn't really touch Kirk Cousins, but I would be starting Bijan Robinson. I don't care who you are. Listen, number 2 running back, you got to start Bijan. There's no question there to me. Last year, I thought this was kind of crazy. Last year, he had 976 yards, 4 touchdowns, 487 reception yards, and 4 touchdowns. But Algier had 186 carries. Bijan had 214. So to be splitting a backfield and have those kind of numbers is insane. With a bad quarterback play, I think Bijan's bound to have a great year. I don't think they're going to play Algier as much. I mean, he will split the backfield for longevity. It's just how the league's going in a committee. But Bijan is a guaranteed start. You got to start him. There's no question. Especially where you drafted him. I mean, he's a first-round pick. There's no doubt. Now, when it comes to Drake London, Kyle Pitts, other than them two, there's no other people to start. I don't even know if I'm starting Kyle Pitts this game, just because I don't trust the guy in terms of what I've seen. The last year he had 1,000 yards was his rookie season, which was in 2021. I mean, he's not done anything. Now, if they start to target the guy this year with Kirk Cousins and it's good team offense, I think he could be good, but it's too much of a risk, and I just don't like Kyle Pitts. Drake London, I do love me some Drake London. I would start him just because he is the solidified receiver 1 there without Darnell Mooney. I believe he's still kind of in question. Right, Rondell Moore, he's also there and got injured. So other than he's the guy. It's Kyle Pitts and Drake London. So if they're going to be a good offense, he's going to receive the ball. But it's going to be a good game. I'm excited to see the odds are in favor of the Falcons, which is interesting after last year. But I think this will be a fun game to watch. Two good defenses that are up. Falcons could be decent, and two new offenses. Just good to see some good football, hopefully. So,
who you got winning? Who you got winning the game?
It was a hard toss-up for me, but I'm going to go with the Steelers. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to take the Steelers.
Solid pick.
I think it doesn't. Russell Wilson's a competent enough quarterback. He'll get the ball moving. Najee Harris. They said he lost weight. Looks better this year without Jaylen Warren. I think he's going to try to put in work. And like Matt mentioned in our last podcast, it's his contract year, so he's got to ball out.
Yeah.
Just to back you up a little bit, the Muth should be a good start this week. Atlanta gave up 9.8 points to the tight end last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur Smith he loves his tight ends.
He does.
Now, in Atlanta, he played Jonnu Smith a lot.
Yeah.
Avery, correct me if I'm wrong. Who's the backup tight end over there? Is it
Darnell Washington?
It's Darnell Washington, yeah.
So I don't think Darnell is gonna factor into the receiving game at all. So I think Muth would be a good play. They did upgrade that defense, but it was bad last year. They did sign Simmons from Denver as well. I don't know if you knew that.
Okay.
So they should be, but they just signed him, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get continuity there. And then on the Kyle Pitts front, that was the only spot that the Steelers gave points to last year. They averaged 10 points to the tight end last year. So he could be a decent start. But with them signing Patrick Queen, that could change that quite a bit. Patrick Queen, he's a stud. So, and Kyle Pitts in practice has been lining up at the receiving position a lot. So it's really interesting on how they're going to use him this year. You really never that guy is such an animal. Like he can play receiver. He can play receiver as well. So he could have a heck of a game. But it is a risky start. Kyle Pitts would scare me. But if you punted the position at tight end, I think Muth would be. I think he's going to get on the loose, is what I'm saying.
No,
I like it. I like it this year for him. I do. Last year, his stats last year were kind of. I mean, they were bad just in terms of because he was injured. But I pulled it up here. He had 308 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting. I don't know how. Russell Wilson, I think you hyping up his stats last year is a little misfound. But you never know. He might be targeting the Muth a lot just as a safety blanket. But what you're saying with Algier, he got a lot of the touches in the red zone for some – I don't know why Arthur Smith loved him so much, but Bijan getting those extra red zone targets, just opportunities in general, that should be huge for his production this year. Bijan is going to be electric this year. He could be a league winner. He might be.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
he might be RB1. You really never know. McCaffrey's so darn good, but he's just one. He's one injury away from, being
done.
Yeah, so I would love to have. Bijan's an automatic every week.
There's no. You should be starting him the rest of the year.
Then Kirk Cousins, I don't know if you just don't like him, but he could be a heck of a backup this year.
I do love me some Kirk Cousins. You never know coming from that injury. He's a little older. I mean, he's got an Achilles. You can't tell until he's playing in a game.
I understand, yeah. I think he could be a good spot start, though, if you find yourself in a position where your quarterback got hurt.
If he's slinging that thing week 1, I'm picking him up off the waivers. I do love Kirk Cousins. But if he looks elite against this defense that's top-notch and even revamped, it's going to be a good season for the man.
Well, with the OC from the Rams coming over, they're going to be passing it. You know that.
They're slinging that thing.
Alex, you say you like Drake London, but didn't take him once in any of our drafts. Just saying. That's just fact.
In terms of value, in terms of ADP value, I didn't want the guy.
You had multiple chances to take him, didn't take him. Not high.
No.
All right, so we're at the hour mark. I'm going to fly through this. Best game of the week right here. Best game of the week. Boy, I would have picked the Steelers Falcons. I got it robbed for me. You also got. I just wanted to shout out Packers versus Eagles, good game. Cardinals Bills, good game. So you got a couple of them. But favorite one, Lions versus Rams. The Lions are favored by 3 points. Do you know what the over? You know what the point total set at in this game?
It's probably like 50 points.
52. Next closest is 46. These guys are projected to slang that thing. I mean, slang that thing.
Homecoming for both of them.
Listen to how similar these teams are. Rams last year 10-7. Lions 12-5. Rams averaged 23.8 games last year. That makes them 9th in total. Lions averaged 27.4 points per game, which would make them 5th. So, I mean, they're both top 10 offenses. The Rams averaged 367.5 yards per game. The Lions averaged 394 yards per game. So, I mean, you're talking about hyper efficiency around here. But here's the even interesting stat. The Rams allowed the 13th most yards per game last year at 337.8. The Lions allowed the 14th most per game last year at 336.11. So 1 yard a game separated them from how much they allowed. So these two teams, super similar. They like to score. Defenses, very bad. Rams, we know, lost Aaron Donald, Hall of Famer, easily. Yeah. And I was telling Alex Matt earlier today, Aaron Donald is the second to last Rams player that was still on the Rams when they were the St. Louis Rams. The only one left is Rob Havenstein. He is the last original St. Louis Rams player still playing for the Rams. After that, no more. He's the last one, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. Yeah, St. Louis Rams, Missouri.
Good organization, yeah.
But so they signed the offseason moves the Rams made. I apologize. They signed Cameron Curl. Shout out Arkansas boy right there. I mean, you got to shout him out. They signed Tre'Davious White, and they drafted 2 defensive tackles, one from Clemson and one from Florida State. So I'm just saying their defense got no better. It got worse. Lost Aaron Donald in the middle. You could say Aaron Donald accounted for 2 players. I mean, he just take on double teams all the time, which is crazy. So they gave up the 13th fewest yards at 105.3 a game to the rush, but that's about to change massively. The Lions, we hit on it earlier, released Cam Sutton, lost both the Okora brothers. One retired, one just went away. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, they let him walk. And all they signed was Marcus Davenport, Terrion Arnold, and Ennis Rackstraw Jr. So they're trying to fix that defense, but rookie cornerbacks just ain't going to be it. Detroit ranked second worst. They were the second worst in passing yards allowed a game at 257, which is crazy. So I'm just saying, bad defenses, great offenses. And here we go. The Rams, obviously, Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. And I think you could honestly probably get away with starting Matthew Stafford with how bad the Lions' corners are. So I'm just saying you could start pretty much the whole Rams starting offense except for tight end. Don't even look at the tight end. I mean, Tyler Higbee got hurt. Ain't worth your time. So my question was, can Puka and Kupp, can they coexist? Puka had 105 receptions for 160 targets on 160 targets, 1,400 yards. Kupp had 69 receptions on 95 targets and 737, which makes sense because Kupp split half the time hurt this year. Yeah. So I'm just saying, you're dealing with like super identical players, and I think we've said before that Kupp is probably going to get the most work this year. So what do y'all think real quick on that?
I think it's going to be we've kind of talked about it. I think it'll be like a 1A, 1B situation. The 1A being Cooper Kupp. If you look at all the reports from training camp and everything, Cooper Kupp is the lead guy in that offense. And then Puka has that kind of lingering knee injury, which that's something you never want to see in the preseason, especially something that could linger. And Puka plays such a physical style of football. He could be hurt easily. Now, Cooper Kupp, we all know his history. He could be hurt week 1 and be gone for 4 weeks. But as it stands now, I think Cooper Kupp's going to get most of the opportunities in the red zone. Him and Stafford just have that connection. And as long as he's fully healthy like he is now, I think it's going to be Cooper Cup's field until he either gets hurt or Puka is 100% healthy. I really don't. They say he's going to be ready for week 1, but I really don't know if they're going to limit him in any way. So we'll just see. As of now, I think Puka's he's got, if not as much, he's got as much talent, if not more, than Cup. But just with the rapport that he has with Stafford, it's going to be Cup unless he gets hurt, which was why he's such a value in the drafts. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, people forget this guy was a Triple Crown winner, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
He is so good. If he can just stay healthy, he'll win people leagues with how late he was going in the draft this year.
Yep, I agree. But and then another one, just to let y'all know, Demarcus Robinson, not a talked about name, but if someone gets hurt, he is the next man up. I'm just saying.
Former chief, baby. Come on.
He's on my dynasty.
I'm just saying, this is the guy to be aware of. I mean, last year he only had I had the stat pulled up, but I think he only had like 300 yards or something. Like, it wasn't crazy, but all those were in like the last 2 weeks. So,
and a lot of them, he had a lot of TDs as well.
Yeah.
He's a burner.
But so he's this is a sleeper to kind of watch. Now let's move to the Lions. They lost Reynolds. That was 64 targets that are now vacated. I'm just saying. So is Williams set up to take that step as wide receiver 2? The answer is yes, but will he do it? We'll see. So, I mean, let's talk about guys you can start. I mean, just dogs, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Laporta, Montgomery, and Gibbs. I mean, all these guys. I have the stats here. Jared Goff had 4,500 passing yards. Amon-Ra had 1,500 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Laporta had essentially 1,000 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Montgomery led the rushing yards. He had 1,015. Jahmyr Gibbs only had 945, which makes sense, though. But Montgomery missed a little bit of time with an injury for a little bit.
He did.
So it's kind of crazy to think that. Now, receiving-wise, it was Jahmyr Gibbs by a mile. I mean, it wasn't even close. But here's something interesting. I said, who will be – I mean, obviously Gibbs is the more talented running back. But listen to these stats. David Montgomery had 219 carries for 1,015 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground. 13. Jahmyr Gibbs had 182 carries, 945 yards, and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Both super efficient. Montgomery had 16 receptions, 117 yards, and no touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 52 receptions for 316 yards and 1 touchdown. So I think they can coexist, but I don't know. Montgomery is still a dog. I think people write him off way too quick. That's just my opinion on that. What do y'all think?
I agree. Actually, yesterday, or when we did the sleepers, David Montgomery was one of my sleeper options because people are kind of writing him off with how high Jahmyr Gibbs is in terms of ADP. So they think, ADP, he's the lone guy. But if you look at how David Montgomery balled out last year with a dual running back committee, right, and on top of being injured, I think he might even just be the guy out there still. Because Jahmyr Gibbs, if he's injured at all, that is his backfield, hands down, vice versa even. But I think Montgomery, he's a little bit thicker. He's not going to get as hurt often. You'd think he's a little older, yeah, but if Gibbs gets – I mean, he's tiny. He's injury prone. So I think Montgomery's the guy, you know.
Montgomery's a heck of a back. He'll get – as you saw last year, it was like one series Montgomery's getting the goal line. The next series Gibbs get – I think it's going to be pretty similar. Campbell has talked about ramping up Gibbs to being the majority, but with the hamstring injury in the preseason, I think he'll be ready week 1, but I think Montgomery will be I think he'll have the higher percentage snap count for maybe the first couple weeks just while they're ramping up Gibbs. But with Reynolds, like you were talking about, a lot of those receptions could go to Gibbs. Jameson, he's a weird player. Coming out of college, we thought he was going to be we thought he's going to be the next thing. And whether it be the gambling suspensions or the torn ACL, he's mainly a deep guy. So I think he'll get a lot more opportunities. But I think Gibbs will get a lot of those passes as well. Which that's what kind of helps even out Montgomery and Gibbs. Even if Montgomery gets more rushing attempts, Gibbs is going to have such a high pass volume.
Yeah.
That's what makes them both viable for fantasy. And
Yeah.
they both have an injury history. So like you guys were saying, whichever one of them goes down, it'll happen at some point during the
Yeah.
season. The other guy just becomes a clear-cut top 5 guy just because that offense is so good. Like, that offense is going to put up points. So whichever one of them is getting the lead role, they're going to be outstanding.
Yeah.
But saying all that, the Rams do have their left tackle out. Got suspended for some violation. They didn't really specify what, just violated the league's rules. So they are missing their starting left tackle, which is very important for a right-handed quarterback in Matthew Stafford. But with that being said, I got the Rams winning this game.
Wow.
As a revenge game. They lost 24-23 in a good game in the playoffs last year.
I love it.
Saying, I think old man Matthew Stafford is going to pop off, show he's got one good year left in the tank, and they're going to win. I think the Rams could legit probably go like 12-5 this year. I think they might lose to the 49ers, but good team. Good team that Stafford can stay healthy.
If you look at the NFC, the Rams are in as good of a position as anyone else.
Yeah.
Like the Eagles into the season last year, I don't know how you explain that. It was horrendous.
Bad.
And with the 49ers, if they lose Ayuk, I think they'll be a lot closer than people think. I don't think the 49ers are just the clear-cut favorite anymore. I think the Rams are good. The Lions are good as well. I don't know who's going to make it out of the NFC, but it could be literally any one of those 4.
Yep, I agree.
I like it.
Now the AFC, we already know who it's going to be. Let's not even.
The Ravens.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. Watch out, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You already know it's the Chiefs.
You already know it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, come on.
Red Kingdom.
I mean, come on.
I like these picks, boys. I like them. Good old Matthew Stafford, Georgia dog. All right, boys. We've been going for a little bit. I think we're going to call it for today. And we're going to sign off here to all of our lab rats out there. Hey, thank you for joining in on Takeology. It's been a blessing. Hope you have a good rest of your day. We'll see you again very soon. And if you would like to send us any questions or comments or concerns, we have an email that you can reach us at. It is Takeology, TAKE-ology, football@outlook.com. Please send us some of your information. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys for all you're doing, and keep